Thank you to JC24 for backing me on Patreon. Volo Guide to Monsters versus Thrasios Triton Hero and Ravos Soul Tender. We will... yeah, we can keep that, I think. The reason that there are partners in the command zone, they are banned in 1v1, partners in the command zone, but we are in the multiplayer room, playing with only one opponent. I'm finding it easier to get opponents outside the 1v1 room, so that means that we're playing with the multiplayer ban list, and we also start with 40 life, and there is a Cloud of Fairies. We just drop a Forest, ready for the Sylvan Caryatid next turn. And our opponent goes straight in for Thrasios. We get a command tower, which is obviously a blue source for us, so I'll get that down, as well as the Dork. And our opponent now has access to a Gaia's Cradle as well. Vizier of Tumbling Sands as well. Untap another target permanent. So I'm guessing that that is part of some kind of a combo. Okay, Lityara, I want to get down my commander here, so we'll have to go for an untapped land. Fertile Ground going on to the Shockland. And then a Darksteel Mutation, so that loses all abilities. We have a Beast Within for that, thankfully. Could always go Clever Impersonator onto Volo, I suppose. And there we go, there is an example of the ban list changing. Well, the ban list not changing, but we're playing with a different ban list, the multiplayer ban list. You can't play Sylvan Library in the official 1v1 room. So in that case, we're going to have to... yeah, it's a shame that the Lityara is a tap land. I'd like to go Sylvan Library and Beast Within. But the Beast Within is the most important thing, so we will wait for our opponent's upkeep, and then we'll go for the Beast Within. And our opponent goes for Thrasios. Scry 1. If it's a land, put it into play tapped. So now that they're tapped out, I'm going to go for Beast Within. They'll be able to swing in the 3-3 at us, but I think it's fine to do this now. And this annoying thing with 1v1, it won't... we can just about see here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the video, but that's where the window is for the reveal zone. So it's going to be really hard to keep track. That is so stupid. What is Magic Online? Who designs this? Ugh. Yeah, so we're not going to be able to keep track of the reveal zone, unfortunately. Oh, it was an Aura Shards that they got with that. That's great. So we might not be able to keep the Sylvan Library in play, unfortunately. They get down their Aura Shards straight away. Then untapping their Gaia's Cradle. And there we have ourselves an Ancestral Mask. So I'm guessing this is maybe an Enchantress build then, with Darksteel Mutation, the Aura Shards. I mean, Ancestral Mask pretty much confirms that. So the Beast is a 7/7. This is where it's relevant that I didn't do it during the upkeep, because that can swing in now. Just didn't want to risk the counter spell, but if I'd known it was Enchantress, then I probably would have done it during the upkeep. Anyway, we get into a land, that's really good, so play that. And I think we can go Cloud of Fairies here. I'll have to hold priority, so I'm holding control. You're all my witness, so if this doesn't work, then it's Magic Online's fault, not mine. We get a copy. So the copy of Cloud of Fairies comes into play. We can untap 2 lands, and then we'll tap those down for mana again. And then the original will come into play. And that's a nice little ramp spell with legs. So not only is it free, but we actually gain 2 mana for that. And then how's about a hard cast Muldrifter as well. So we'll keep it in play, ready for flickering it if we can. And we'll draw 4 cards here to the Muldrifter. Alright, and there we go. They did have counter magic. So that is relevant. I think it might have to be Reality Shift onto this thing so that they're not generating too much mana. Yeah, we'll see here. We get the copy of the Muldrifter at least. Alright, and there's a Worm Coil Engine as well as a land. So I think Reality Shift onto that would be a good idea. Because I'm just worried about the Gaia's Cradle being too good. They've only got 1 card in hand, so maybe it's a bit too aggressive. because they're getting the Ravos out next turn either way if they want it. So I think we'll just hold on to Reality Shift for now. Not just going to throw down the Sylvan Library because it will blow up immediately. And our Reality Shift will actually trigger the Aura Shards. This triggers on any creature entering. Our opponent gets 5 mana from the mana drain, of course, because Muldrifter costs 5 mana. We've only got 1 card in hand, so not necessarily worried about the mana they can generate here. Okay, and it was a Utopia Sprawl, so it's pretty much just Thrasios then. They can generate a decent sum of mana with Gaia's Cradle and the Vizier of the Tumbling Sands. And then they dump that generic mana into a Scry 1. And it is Bloom Tender that they revealed, so that is another mana dork. Playing that straight away. Triggers the Aura Shards. And this is going to be relevant against the Worm Coil Engine as well. I'd very much like to get rid of Aura Shards. Suppose I could go Clever Impersonator and then make a creature and blow up their Aura Shards. I'd have to do that in 1 turn though. So there's Ravos Soul Tender. Let's go... We could Reality Shift onto our own Cloud of Fairies token to trigger the Clever Impersonator as an Aura Shards. And then we can actually stick Sylvan Library and Worm Coil Engine. That might be an idea. And then tapping down the Gaia's Cradle for 5 mana. Dumping the mana into Thrasios, and then they'll be able to do that again with their untap effect. It was Awakening Zone this time, which is the 3 mana enchantment that makes an Eldrazi spawn. And there it is. So now it is a 12/12 swinging in. We will block with the original Cloud of Fairies, because it's the token that we want to exile. It might be relevant that that's in the bin for us. Alright, an Uro for us as well. Let's go for the Polluted Delta. We'll set up this Aura Shards, get rid of it. So that can be a tropical island. Maybe should have gone for a tap land there, actually. Oh well. Go Clever Impersonator, and we'll obviously be able to copy 2 things here. So I fancy taking a Ravos from our opponent, because we'll be able to get Cloud of Fairies and Muldrifter back, so already not exiling the original Cloud of Fairies, becoming relevant. Actually didn't think of that. So this one can become the Aura Shards. And then the Clever Impersonator entering as Ravos can blow up their Aura Shards. So that triggers the Aura Shards, we blow up theirs. So we've actually managed to save our Reality Shift there, because I didn't think of the sequencing until it was actually right in front of me. So how about we go for Uro, Titan of Nature. Get a copy of the Uro. We'll only be able to keep 1 copy because it is legendary, of course, but this will trigger Aura Shards, so let's get rid of that Ancestral Mask. And then it hasn't escaped, so we will have to sacrifice it, but we'll gain 3 life and draw a card. Maybe ramp a little bit as well. Nothing to put into play with that. Then the original Uro is going to come into play. And we will blow up the Awakening Zone. The Aura Shards is going to be a real boon to us if this is some kind of Enchantress build. And then it's gain 3 life and draw a card from the Uro. And a Gaia's Cradle of our own. Excellent. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 mana. I think it is Sylvanmere and the Sylvan Library. So that was a hell of a draw for us. So this is quite the productive turn. We'll get rid of both of the auras that are attached to our opponent's lands. And then drop the Sylvan Library, and that's our turn. Thanks to Ravos, we do have a buff on some of our flyers, so I'm willing to trade their Ravos for our Cloud of Fairies. Let's swing in there. Our opponent is empty-handed here, so they are in top deck mode, although obviously they've got the Ravos interaction to refill a little bit. Now the Bloom Tender taps for 4 mana thanks to all the colours they've got available to them, so that goes straight into Thrasios. And that is Cetizen Champion, so that is definitely, that's the Enchantress piece. That is a creature, 3 mana, gains a +1/+1 counter and draw a card every time you play an enchantment, I think it is. Yeah, enchantment enters under your control, plus counter and draw. Oh, and that's a real shame. Our opponent's scooping at that. You know, I tried to get a game of Volo in multiplayer, And it was one of those games that just dragged on for a while. Our deck wasn't doing very well anyway, and then the game just ended up crashing. So I've jumped into the 1v1 room, and we're just going to get this apparently. So I'm trying my damnedest to get you Volo gameplays, but I don't know what to do. I'll try another one, and hopefully that one pans out better. But this was shaping up to be a really good game, I thought. Volo Guide to Monsters versus Ramos Dragon Engine. With no ramp. I'm going to get rid of that. Bit too rich for my liking. And of course we just get into a hand with no lands, because why wouldn't you? Okay, that's better. We will keep there, and I think we have to get rid of 2 cards. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be Wormcoil Engine, and we'll get rid of the Swan Song as well. Fierce Guardianship can protect our commander from targeted removal or board wipes or anything like that. So we'll just drop an island and pass. Hopefully we can catch up. Okay, an Elemental Bond will be decent for when our commander comes down. Hopefully we'll draw into a land here. Let's play that as a green source and we'll go Fibblethip. And alright, get a Verdant Catacombs, that's really good. So we can go Elemental Bond next turn, and then hopefully at some point we'll get into another land for the Volo. And Volo entering, we'll draw a card with the Bond as well. A Simic Signet from our opponent, starting to set up their colours. Okay, Sylvan Caryatid, maybe that's better than the Elemental Bond? Either way, I think we have to hold off on Volo for a turn. We'll go Elemental Bond this time, because either way we're not doing Volo before the Elemental Bond comes in. We either play the Caryatid now to get the Summoning Sickness away from it, then go Elemental Bond anyway. Or we go Elemental Bond now, and next turn we wouldn't be tapping Sylvan Caryatid down for our Volo regardless. So yeah, we'll go Elemental Bond. And this way we can get to Sylvan Caryatids potentially as well. We've got the chance to draw into a land for just hard casting the Volo with lands next turn. And if we do that, then we get 2 mana dorks. Put the Fear of God in our opponent by swinging in with a 1-1. Another rock from our opponent, so it's likely that we'll see Ramos next turn, I think. And we do not get into a land, so that just means that it is Sylvan Caryatid here. Actually, we'll go for the Silvermere because I'd rather have 2 copies of the plant. The only downside of this deck is that all the dorks are 2 mana and quite slow. Alright, and a Sylvan Library, because we are playing in the multiplayer room here. You can set up however many opponents you like, and I've obviously set up 1 opponent here. Because I've had trouble getting the Volo games going, so just decided to not edit the deck in any way for 1v1. Let's see if our opponent's got counter magic in this deck. Seems to be the done thing is to run blue decks. Luckily not, so Elemental Bond will trigger when it enters and we get a land for the turn. That's really good. Pass at that. Now a Rhystic Study from our opponent. I don't think I want to be feeding cards into my opponent. We can always go Brutalizer Exarch though, I suppose, so what's that? 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe can do it next turn. Yeah, we'll allow it. I'm going to hold on to Fierce Guardianship for anything that can actually remove our commander. And there's an Enlightened Tutor. And then it is doubling season they've gone for, so I'm guessing that this might be Super Friends, or maybe they just want double the counters going on Ramos. Just noticed my opponent's username actually. Sister Fister, that's a Nickelodeon show, isn't it? Alright, and we do get into a land, so we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 into Brutalizer Exarch. I am going to shock myself here, I think. We will give our opponent a card, but we'll also get rid of Sylvan Library and Rhystic Study. So they draw a card with Rhystic Study because we can't afford to pay for that. And then these will trigger the Elemental Bond as well. Put a target non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. Rhystic Study with that one. Draw into a Mana Crypt, that's nice. And with that one, we'll go Sylvan Library. So they'll still draw into their doubling season, but they won't look at the other 2 cards that are on top. Now, is it likely our opponent's going to wheel a Mana Crypt out of our hand? We might take an unnecessary bolt, but just in case they get a Mana Crypt out of our hand with a wheel or something, I'm just going to play it there. And we'll swing in for 4 points of damage on our opponent. So there's the doubling season from our opponent. I think it is actually worth a Fierce Guardianship on that, because if our opponent's getting into Planeswalker emblems, that's not good for us. So yeah, we'll go for that and just hope our opponent doesn't scoop here. They've still got 7 cards in hand and plenty of life, so they shouldn't scoop. Now let's see if we get our unnecessary lightning bolt. We certainly do, getting bolted for no reason, going down to 33. And a Tender Shoot Dryad, excellent. Let's see what we draw with the Curious Stray first of all. Or the Generous Stray even. Obviously get a copy of that, so a couple of 2/1s, each of them draws us a card. Alright, Acidic Slime we could really hurt our opponent with, but I'm not going to do that. Another Dork. Let's go Tender Shoot Dryad. And we do have the City's Blessing, so we're going to get a couple of Saprolings, and they're going to be 5/5s, I think. Do they get a +4/+4 buff because there's 2 of them? So a couple of 5/5s during every upkeep. Our opponent needs a board wipe at this point, which they may well have. They've got 7 cards. These will trigger the Elemental Bond because of the buff as well. So Elemental Bond doing some work for us this game. There is a Muldrifter. Got our opponent next turn if they don't wipe the board here. Alright, doesn't seem as though our opponent has anything. They might be struggling on mana here. We win the flip with Mana Crypt this time. Draw into Thassa and Wormcoil Engine thanks to the Elemental Bond. There's a Utopia Sprawl. Our opponent might be able to bounce a bunch of stuff back to our hand. So let's go 10 life there. And then we'll go... yeah, we'll just go like that. They might be able to bounce something, but whatever. Playing around Ether Eyes and cards like that. Although I suppose we could have countered it with the Mana Drain, couldn't we? So there we go, taking them down. They didn't have anything for us. Big thank you to my opponent for actually playing it out. Hopefully you all enjoyed this brief revisit to Volo. I will continue to try and get multiplayer games with it, but I'm not having the best success. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.